Hi guys, welcome back to the channel. So I've not done a video with the van for quite some time, but today's the day guys, because I need to start fitting a diesel heater. Me and Connie were out in the van just the other day there, went down to the local beach, or local-ish beach, up at Kingsbarns, and well, we're sitting in the van. We'd gone for a little dog walk, ramble and stuff, and we'll get back in the van, and we're sitting watching the telly, a wee cup of tea, and it was absolutely freezing. And I thought, I've got this diesel heater sitting in a box. I've never ever got around to fitting it. And we're planning on going away camping a couple of weeks' time. Let's get this heater fitted, make it more comfortable for everybody involved. So the hardest part there was trying to get everything out of the van that's going to be in the way. So as you can see in the background there, I've got the top off what we use as the bed. It's just a basic bed, it's just a frame with the lid is kind of leafed and it just sort of flaps over, and then we'll put the mattress down on there. It works fine, it does us well, but whenever you're trying to do anything on the side of the van, you have to just unscrew all the top off. It doesn't allow for much access while it's in position. So yeah, we've got that all stripped, and as you can see, I've already started putting through the wires. Right, so I'm just going to give a little bit of an explanation of what I'm doing here and what the actual plan is. Now I know with diesel heaters, a lot of people will have them sort of wired in sort of for the fuel into their actual fuel tank. I don't want to do that. I'm not capable enough to drop the fuel tank and get into the top of it and add the fuel line in there. So what I'm going to do is just use an external tank which is going at the back section of the bed here. I'm going to wait to flip the camera around and let you see what the plan is. So as you can see with the unpainted sections there on the timber, this bed has had a few revisions, as you can see with that and that down there, but I'm kind of happy with the way the frame is. It does seem a bit loose at the moment, but that's just because it's actually only attached to the floor and there's nothing at the top bracing it to the wall. But the plan actually is for today is, as you can see, I've made a start. So I've terminated the ends. I've not got my heat gun to shrink this shrink wrap on it. So obviously the cables will all be undone from the switches and everything when they're getting mounted, and then I'll heat shrink the actual shrink wrap just to make it look a wee bit more professional and tidy. So all the ends are already terminated, and I've lifted the floor tiles up, damaged a couple of them as you can see, but I'm not too fussed about that. It's just a case of getting power to this back end of this side of the van. This panel here, just on there, so we've got like 4 tiles and stuff on that. That whole panel is going to be removed, and I'm going to have my switch gear and stuff on there, so I'm going to have some extra lighting around the facing of the bed and stuff like that, but there's also going to be, and I think this is key, an isolation switch. As you can see there, I've got an isolation switch and I've made up the end suitable to fit into that. So that's going to be fitted in because the diesel heater which is going in the floor there, the diesel heater, I'm a bit concerned about having a diesel heater. If something goes wrong, I want to be able to just kill the power to the thing. So that's why this isolation switch is going in. The only other thing that's going to be connected into it, I think, will be lighting. And that's about it. There is an LCD display which will show the power going to that side, but we also have that up there as well, so it's not really important. However, when this panel is removed and we put a thicker panel on for fitting things to, because I don't think this has really got the depth to screw things into, I want something a wee bit more substantial. I'm also going to put a back on here. Sorry, I'll just there. I'm going to put a back on here and separate both sides of the bed, so that the forward side now will be for housing the bedding and stuff, and this place right at the back, it's just going to be for the diesel heater. And when the bed's all made up and it's got a lid on, I can still access through this back door here and get into the diesel heater for any servicing required. Right, so been cracking on with this behind the scenes. I don't remember what last part I filmed, but certainly I've lifted all the floor tiles, and I've put in an isolation switch and I've terminated the ends. I'll just move the camera here and let you see what I've been doing. So this is the ends, this is how they are. They're coming through the cabinet, just like that. The first cut was a disaster because I didn't realise that you had to cut through from both sides or it would tear through the back because of the type of wood. So that was a learning curve, and obviously I've rectified that on the second cut. I could tidy it up, but nobody's going to see it anyway. So for all you that are cutting through this compressed MDF type stuff, make sure that you're cutting through both sides so that it doesn't sort of blow out. So the isolation switch is just there, tucked in the corner. I wanted to be able to access this, like I said earlier. So the next thing I need to do is I've terminated the ends at the battery side of things that are underneath the 3-seater in the rear of the vehicle. So I'm going to run the wires into the battery, put the termination switch on to light off, and then I'm going to wire up a couple of bus bars and run everything off the bus bars. Right, so this is the bus bars that we're using here, and they basically sit in flush inside the cabinet here, just like this. So they'll sit like that. Obviously there's the red and the black for both different sides of the cabling. This is the black one here, and the way they work is the wee cover comes off, and that's just held in with a couple of plastic sort of grommets just to cover all the wires up, make it nice and tidy. So we'll mount that onto the wood, and then where the wires are coming through, we'll just again do these like little holes, probably smaller because the gauge of the wire is going to be a little narrower, and you don't want the hole to be too big. So yeah, we'll just we'll move on with that, get that in position, and see if we can put some switches in. Right, so still loads to do, and a lot of cleaning is going to be required once I'm finished today, but that's the bus bars in, and it's just a case of connecting everything up to them. Obviously I did say I was going to connect up to the batteries at the front, but I've not done that yet. I'm just going to concentrate on this back piece. Once everything's in, then I'll put the switch into the off position, connect up the battery, come round here, put it to on, and see everything light up, hopefully. Right, so the next stage of this project is this strip of LED sort of lighting here, and what I'm doing is I'm just coming through the positive hole here, the one just at the isolation switch, and I'm going to run it pretty much around the edge of this whole bit, and then back through again, and the wires will just come through, connect in to the terminals, and then again through there and connect into the terminal. So yeah, I'm not entirely sure, since I'm going to have to put this through a switch, but I'll not terminate the end just now, but I'll fit it, and I'll have to head somewhere else because I've got my switches at another location. So yeah, once the switches are in, I'll get it into a switch, but this one end that comes in will have to go through there, and then hopefully it looks good. But the idea is to have like a clear cover on this. Obviously you don't want that to be bare and open, because that's obviously, it's going to be live once everything's switched on. So the plan is just to have like a clear sort of perspex or Lexan cover over the top of this. I will have to get some touch-up paint, cover this up, try and tidy it up a wee bit, but yeah, that's the plan going forward. I cannot believe what a mess I'm making. So I was going to cut out circles, and that is just so that the switches can sort of poke through, but what I've decided, it's too much hassle. I'm just going to jigsaw the whole section out, and I'll leave the circle for the switch because that's already cut. Whoop. leave that circle at the end there, that's for the switch, that's already cut. But the rest of it, I'll just cut it enough for the template. Obviously the metal cover goes over the front of that anyway, so yeah, it makes it easier. Right, so that's the hole cut out. It's no nice, but like I say, it gets all covered up anyway. All the switches will be in there. Right, so that's my bus bars then, my isolation switch, and then my switch gear. Obviously that's at the other side because this is getting covered. Right, so where we're at just now, guys, is we've got the switch gear all set up. We've got the isolation switch. So guys, this is a problem we've encountered so far, is that the fuel tank's going to be going here, but there isn't really enough room for the nozzle here for the filling of the tank. So I think what I'll do is I'll take this strut here, take that off. I'm going to try and trim it and just make sure that I've got enough room for that to sit and be actually fillable. Right, so that's a key piece of information for you guys. So when you get one of these fuel tanks, obviously the hole for the like the outlet isn't there, because you can put this in like various different orientations in your van, and some people might want the outlet to be in a different place basically. So so the way I've done it is you feed this tube straight through the tank out the end, then you attach the nozzle onto the end of the tube, pull it back through, you get it into this position here, just like that. You put your grommet on that side, obviously the grommet's on the inside where you've already applied it, and then you slide your nut to fasten it straight down the line. Once that's on and threaded, you can take this green line back off, and that's basically your nozzle attached. I just thought I would explain that there, just because I was head scratching for a moment. This here is the finished article. So now basically all you do is you get inside the like screw holes, you've got little washers for your screws, go in there and then you just attach it to the position that you're wanting it in the van. So I made a few adjustments earlier on so that you can get into this screw end underneath the frame of the bed. All will become apparent once it's fitted. Right, so here underneath is where I'm going in with the drill. So I used this hole which was already there. I've gone through the floor to kind of use that as a guide as to where it's going to sit. So I need to get my hole cutters, cut out that, make sure I've got enough room here, cut out another one there. So I'm just about to measure that up. Failing that, I'll flip it round and do it the other way around where there's a wee bit more room. So still taking measurements at this time. Right guys, so I've got the holes marked out. That's going to be where the heater will sit. So the fuel tank's going to be going over on the other side now, which is fine. It works. The only issue that I've got is the hole cutter that I've got has a threaded part. So I thought it had like a pin on it that I could just put it into my drill. So I'm going to go and see if I can get something else or find out how this works. Wood. There's no going back now. That's the first hole cut. One more to go. Right, okay, so we're getting somewhere guys. What we've done now is we've got the plate in the floor. I've also put a divider in there on this side, and that'll hold the fuel tank now, so the fuel tank will go there. This brace, that's obviously having to be moved. I'm just going to put that further back. It just gives you more access to this because it's kind of filling up of the fuel tank. Then we've got the metal plate in the floor and both holes are now drilled right through. I've put another piece of board on there just so that it meets this actual plate here. So that goes in there, and then you've pretty much got a straight drop through for your exhaust and your air filter. And this is the diesel heater that I'm using. This is the diesel heater of choice. This is the Proac heater, just a Chinese one as well, but I think the reviews for it were kind of better than some of the ones that I'd seen. So I'm just going to pop that on. I'd like to see how it's all going to look. So that will just sit up there nicely. And then from the back of there, we'll have a hose coming down and round on a 90 bend straight through a vent in the side of the bed there, and that'll be it. So still quite a few things to do. Obviously I've got the exhaust and stuff to do under the van. Obviously the air filter line will have to come through underneath the van as well. I've not looked how I'm securing them yet, but I'm just doing one bit at a time, not going to stress out about it. And as for the hole for the actual outlet, I've not got a hole cutter for that yet, so it's just one step at a time. But for now, I'm going to get the actual heater in place, make sure that everything's dropped through, and then find a place to mount it underneath the van. Right, so that's the tank actually fixed into position, and just underneath, that's the fuel line just coming out. So it is tilted slightly up here at the back. That's just so that to make sure there isn't a kink in the fuel line. So obviously when you're down to dribs and drabs of the fuel, it's just going to run to this forward corner here. But I'd rather that than actually have a kink in the fuel line, so that's the way it is for now. Obviously it'll have to have a clip on there. I'll run that down the line and put a clip on, but that's the tank in anyway. And as you can see, I've moved this brace back. It isn't tidy by any means. I've left a bit of a gap there because obviously we've got the lighting in position here now, and I'll fire that on just to let you see it. So obviously, yeah, I've left some room for that so it wasn't pinched. But that's just so I've got a bit of lighting in this cupboard should anything go wrong and I'm needing to see what I'm doing for a bit of maintenance. Right, well, here I am again. Hopefully finish this off today. I've not been doing much each day, as you can tell by this edit, and obviously I've got to change of clothes on. But I had a little bit of a thought about it last night, and I was going to put the plate on, drop this in, and then try and attach everything once in place. But I have had a little bit of a think, and I think the best course of action would probably be, and here's the thing, this is why I've given it a little bit of thought. So obviously that drops in. Once it's in, you can't get screws into these holes to hold the bracket in place against the wooden frame, but you can still sort of get in with a long reach screwdriver just to attach this plate to the floor. So it's going to be attached in there with the 4 bolts, but it'll be far easier than trying to reach in underneath with my limited space to try and make my attachments. And I want to make sure obviously that the exhaust and stuff's on properly good. So I think it's probably best just to attach this all on here and then drop it into place where it's going to sit in position, and just allow the pipes to drop through the holes, and then attach this to the floor, and it'll be a case of getting underneath and pretty much finding mounting points for the exhaust and just to see where the air filter is going to sit and whatnot. So yeah, this is the next stage, and this is the bit that I've not really been looking forward to, because it's a bit, that's just the exhaust there, but it's a bit daunting when you kind of look at a bag full of parts like that and you kind of think to yourself, well, what bits for what? But I'll just approach it one piece at a time, and try not to be overwhelmed by the whole process. So I think the first thing to do would probably be, obviously, get the bolts in place just to attach that frame to the bottom of the heater. So if I look in here, I can find I've got the bolts there, obviously just to screw into that plate there. So I'll put that on first. So how I'm doing this, I want to make sure this is tight. Obviously I don't want any sort of untoward rattling or whatever. I have to make sure this plate isn't going to be or make sure the heater isn't going to be kind of wobbling on this plate. So I've got a sort of screwdriver attachment with a ratchet on the end, and I'll tighten up diagonally across, make sure it's going on plate. So that straight, I should say, going on plate. So yeah, that one goes there. Then we just go across the diagonal, we tighten that in there, and then again with this one. And then across the diagonal. And when you attach things sort of with diagonally opposed bolts, it kind of just helps everything sit flush. You're not going to end up with a raised end or whatever. And just to make sure that I can beef these up properly, just to let you see how I'm doing this, I've got a screwdriver kind of attachment for the socket, and then on the end of there I can just put a little baby ratchet in and just tighten it up. Not over tight, but just enough to know that it's not going to loosen off with vibrations. Right, so what I've also done off camera there is this little nipply bit. It's just covering the fuel line just to stop any foreign objects getting in there when when it's in transit or not in use. So I just made sure that I can get that off with my fingers. It's just on the end now, so I can just pop it off. And then when it comes to putting on the fuel line, again, if you just heat it up in a little bit of steam or in a cup of hot water or whatever, make sure it's not wet when you attach it. You don't want any water getting in here, but it just makes the pipe a wee bit more pliable, and you can just pop that on. You also have a fuel line clip just to hold it in place. So if you pop that on the fuel line first, once you pop it in place, then you can just bring the clip down into place and give it a little bit of a tighten. Right, next thing is that I think I should do before I go putting this all together properly is making sure that I've got my fuel pump in line and attach it to the tank with enough hose that's going to reach the actual heater. So it comes with this clip here, so that obviously it's kind of rubber mounted, and that's I suppose just to be a preventive measure against noise. So you can screw that into your cabinet, and your pump isn't against the woodwork. So I believe these do tick a wee bit. There is probably a little bit of noise from them, but this rubber mount will be obviously a preventative measure just to reduce that noise, so that it's got less of an impact within the van. So yeah, we'll get that in place. Another thing worth mentioning is I believe these have got to sit at like a 45-degree angle. I read that online. It isn't saying that in the book, but I did read that up when I was on a subreddit group reading about how to fit these things. And apparently when you put this in at a 45-degree angle, it's just to stop any air bubbles maybe forming up in your fuel line. So that kind of helps. So yeah, we'll have a look at that, see where I'm fitting it, and then we'll use this obviously rubber mount just to hold it in place. We'll be able to cut the fuel line from the tank to the pump at the right length, and then we'll use what's left on the other end, and we'll cut that to fit once we line it up where it's getting routed and how it's going into the actual heater. Another thing, whilst we're actually just sitting here discussing this and not actually doing anything, it's worth mentioning for those of you that are fitting these. You can see there that there is an outlet here and an outlet here, or an inlet and an outlet I should say. So it's easily identifiable which one's which. Obviously the hot exhaust one is the one that's furthest away from this fuel line, and your air intake is the one that's actually next to the fuel line intake. So yeah, it's easy not to mistake the two. But worth mentioning, because in the heat of the moment, when you're actually putting these things together, it probably would be quite easy just to pop it on the wrong port. So yeah, that's what you need to look for. You need to look for keeping the fuel line directly away from the exhaust, which will get extremely hot. Again, if you look at this, I'll turn it around so it's easier to see, but there's a little bit of a red section there. Now that's rubber as well. So although I said like we'll tighten this up and prevent any noise, you do have to squash it into that rubber, I suppose like a gasket kind of thing. And that rubber gasket is going to prevent any motor noise transmitting through the floor of the van where you have it mounted as well. So yeah, make sure that when you put this together you've got that gasket there in place, or you're just going to be putting solid plastic motor into a metal plate, and that is going to make it a little bit noisier than if you've got that rubber gasket sitting there in between the two. Right, so I've had a little bit of thought process here going on, and this fuel tank's giving me a bit of a headache, and not because I can't get it mounted. As you can see, it's clearly mounted and we can gain access to fill it up. I just feel like the edge of the fuel tank and where the motor sits, there isn't much of a gap there. Now I'm not sure how much these motors or heaters get in regards to temperature, but I just feel like I'm going to relocate this again for the third time now, because I'm only going to do this once and I want to do it right. So I'm going to take it off of there, and what I've done is I've taken the back panel off the back here, I'm going to move this so that it's flush on this side, and sorry, I'll have the fuel tank here, and then that way at least there's a bit of a divide between that and the actual heater itself. I just think for a safety point of view that's probably going to be for the best. So it is going to delay me a little bit while I relocate it, but if you just bear with me, we'll get that moved and then we'll start the whole fitting process from there. So here's where I'm up to. I've got the fuel pump in line. I'm just running the fuel hose. So I thought I'll come round here, I'll keep it in place with the clips all the way around, and when I come round the back, I'll come round and into there. So it's routed all the way away from obviously the hot exhaust. The fuel tank's now mounted at the other side. It's all in place, and in the back here there's obviously the fuel filter. There is a lot of mess with sawdust and stuff that I'll have to clean up once I'm complete, get the floor tiles all fixed and whatnot, but for now we're getting there. Once the fuel line's in place, I'll be able to start actually installing the heater. Right, so that's the heater actually in place, and when you go underneath the van you see the stuff just dropping through. So obviously we need to connect up all the electrics and then mount the exhaust and air filter underneath. That's the next step. Right guys, so we have started putting the connections in, and it does look a bit of a mess just now. Obviously the wires are all far too long and whatnot, but I'm just going to sort of route them all tidily once everything's connected up, try and make some sense of it, but we're certainly getting somewhere. What I will say is it's really easy to connect these terminals because the connections only go in one way and everything's kind of different, so you don't really need to look at a wiring schematic or diagram or whatever. It's pretty much plug and play at this point. So next thing we need to do is obviously at the front side of here where we have got some sockets and a switch for the lighting, just underneath there is where I'm going to put the control module for the diesel heater. So I need to cut a hole there, get the wires through, get that mounted, and that's another step done. Right, so progress is happening guys. So we've got the hose on now, and I've mounted the control panel in there and the vent down in the floor section there. So the hole for the wire's probably a bit big, but it's because I needed to have a hole big enough to put the connector block through. And in hindsight I could have mounted it and covered that hole, but that is what it is. So the next thing that I'm having problems with, I need well, that's all mounted into the floor, it's screwed in at one side, so I need a long reach screwdriver to put the screws in the back, and then underneath here I still need to just finish up, excuse the rust, it is an old van, I need to just finish up mounting the exhaust there on that bracket, so the air filter's coming out in that direction, the exhaust will be pointing out the other direction there. Right, so that's the air filter, it's just cable tied on. Couldn't find anywhere to put an L bracket for that, but that's okay. And that there, that's the exhaust all fitted. Obviously pointed well clear away from the air intake. So all that's left to do now really is to go and get some fuel and fire her up. Right, so that's the pump ticking away, just need to get some fuel in the line. The heater's just blowing out cold air at the moment. Right, there's nothing to see here, but I can guarantee you we've got hot air coming out. One thing I will say though, It sounds a bit like a jet taking off in here. I'm not sure if they're meant to be quite that loud. But mission complete. Right, I'll hit fold this duvet up before I put it in.
It was kind of folded up. I picked it up, which made it unfold.
No, that's fine. Right, so that's the van done. It's still a bit of tidying up to do, but I've had my wee helper getting the bed made and everything. So the bed's all made, the heater's been tested and working, and I'll be honest, what a job. But if you think it through and do a wee bit of prep work, I kind of just went in all guns blazing without making a plan, hence the reason that the fuel tank had to be moved 3 times. If I'd thought it out properly, I'd have realised that it was going to be sitting far too close to the actual heater itself. But all the same, it's done now, happy days. I would like to, if you've made it this far, thank you all for watching, and please hit the like and subscribe, and hopefully see you on the next video. Bye for now.